Hello, my name is Morgan, and I am an individual who has lived with bipolar disorder for the past 25 years. And I have gone through a lot of heartbreak and a lot of struggles in dealing with this condition. I was first diagnosed as bipolar when I was 18 or 19, and it was following a traumatic event in my life, which is often times when bipolar does reveal itself in someone's life. I lost all of my hair when I was 17 years old to alopecia universalis. And I had a really difficult time coping with that, a loss of identity and self-consciousness and embarrassment. And whereas some people may have been able to process an event like that, and grieve and come to some form of closure, I was really unable to do that. And I went into a very deep depression. There is a difference between people who have normal moods of sadness. Every person, even, healthy, normal people will feel sad at times. Depression is very different. It is a very physical illness. My first major depression was about 3 months long. And during that time, I stayed in bed in the fetal position. I didn't speak to my loved ones, my mother, my father, my brother. I didn't leave the house. I was in a state of disassociation and felt like I was in a living hell. And during that time, I did attempt suicide because I felt so hopeless, and was taken to a mental hospital. While I was there, they did prescribe me medications that were very sedating, that kept me calm for a period of time, but also sort of debilitated me to the point of not being able to function in society as a whole or interact with my family in any way. So I eventually did go off of that medication. So I lived unmedicated and eventually went to college, which was a change. And changes can sometimes upset a person with bipolar, whether they're a positive change or a negative change. Any change in routine can throw a person off. So it's very important for me now to stick to a routine and behave in the same way on a daily basis, so I don't aggravate my illness. And when I was in college, I experienced my first manic episode. And a manic episode is characterized by a very high mood. I felt very euphoric. I felt like I was on top of the world, that nothing could ever go wrong, that I was invincible. I even tried to run through a wall at one point because I thought that I had the powers to do that. I thought that birds were speaking to me and that I was on a mission from God. So the reason that a person is diagnosed with bipolar 1, like me, is because they have classic symptoms of mania, whereas bipolar 2 is a person who primarily has symptoms of depression. And from that point forward, over the course of the years, I would be put on many different kinds of medications. Those medications would have side effects, and I would decide to go off of those medications. And when I would do that, then the symptoms of my illness would return. I would have a manic episode. I'd get in the car and I'd drive to West Virginia or to Florida, and spend money. That's one of the main symptoms of a mania, is spending too much money. Sexual promiscuity, delusional thinking, fixation. I'd get on to one thing and I would just decide that was the solution to all my problems, and nothing could pull me away from whatever it was I was fixated on. And I am a long cycling bipolar. Some people are rapid cycling, so that means that they go through moods on a daily basis, where 1 hour they're very happy, the next hour they're very sad. That lasts for a little while, and throughout the day they just have ups and downs where they can't regulate their mood. I'm a long cycling bipolar, which means I have 3 months worth of mania, and then I have 3 months worth of depression. And each one of those episodes takes a great deal of energy to recuperate from. And the only thing that I have found that helps is having found a proper regimen of medication and taking that medication religiously as life-saving medication. It is not optional for me. It is something I have to take, just like a person with heart disease has to take heart medication, a person with diabetes has to take insulin. It is not an option, and it took me a long time to figure that out, because there's such a stigma against medication, and it makes people feel like they're not good enough, or there's something wrong with them if they have to take medication. And a lot of the times people just want to exist in their manias because mania feels really good for a certain period of time, but it can end up being very violent and disorienting. And I, at times, have alienated my family. I have caused harm to others. I've harmed myself. And I was lucky enough to finally have a DNA test that determined what kind of medication was the most sufficient for me. And a lot of the times I've been to mental wards and psychiatric facilities on numerous different occasions over the years. And I would go there and they would get my medication stabilized. And then I would leave the hospital, and then I would change the way that I use my medicine, and my illness would become unmanageable again, and I would end up back in the hospital. And that's a cycle that's very familiar to a lot of people with bipolar disorder. I have since been able to get my life under control with the help of medication, with therapists, and with structure in my life and adhering to that structure. It's very important to treat mental illness just as seriously as physical illness. Bipolar is very uncomfortable. It's very extreme. It can distort reality to the point of not being able to make sense of the world. And there's paranoia, makes you distrustful of others. And so when bipolar is unmanaged and you enter into a place of sickness, it can take a very long time to get out of that sickness. And there's not much that people who love you can do, because you have to somehow figure out how to get help for yourself while you're being very sick at the same time. And I am just blessed to have had almost 4 years of stability in my life. And that is attributed to my medication and my daily routine and self-care. I have to be careful with the types of things I expose myself to. In media, I can't watch certain movies. I can't be around certain crowds or do certain things. I have to be very careful about what kind of input that I put into my system, because things could trigger me into an episode. And I take my mental health very seriously, because I have had many struggles and had to go to the hospital on numerous occasions. And the mental health industry has its limitations, and it has had to be a decision that I have made to take my illness seriously. So I hope that helps you understand bipolar from my perspective. So thank you so much. Bye.